Alright guys, tonight we're working on a couple of these Poulan Pro leaf blowers. Just wanted to make a video there guys on these. Picked them up real cheap at an auction, and I've done this before. Picked these blowers up pretty reasonable. I think I gave like 12 bucks a piece for them guys. This one here I already got done. Tore it all apart. Cleaned it up real good. It was real dirty, and but I want to go over a video here guys on a lot of times you can find these things real cheap. They won't run, and basically it's either the fuel line, like this one here. I had to change the fuel line, and I'm gonna have to change the fuel line on this one, because when I looked it over, I noticed that this here the little filter with the fuel line was just floating around down in there. It was broken off in there, so I knew it wasn't going to run. And the other problem that you will always find on these guys is, now I've already cleaned this piston up a little bit, but a lot of times, too guys, what will happen is these piston rings will actually be stuck on the piston, and they're not, the ring is not moving freely like it's supposed to. So then what happens guys is you'll start losing compression inside your cylinder here, and once you start losing compression, they just will not run right, especially when that ring is frozen to the piston itself. It's not moving freely on there. And just like on both of these guys, I've seen it so many times on these gas blowers. Actually, another guy that I work with, we do a lot of leaf cleanup at some rental properties, and we just use these cheap blowers. And on his, I've had to change his piston ring a couple times. Because sometimes you try to take these apart guys, and you won't be able to get the ring off there without breaking it, because they're not a real thick ring. But a lot of times if you take a little scratch awl guys, let's say you got one of these froze up, take your little scratch awl and go on each side of that ring and get some of that carbon. This had a lot of carbon built up around it, and I was able to go all the way around this and clean the carbon up, and I was able to save this ring and that ring too on that one. And if you can save the rings, basically all you got to do is go in there and clean all that carbon up out there. I'll clean this one up real good, and that's what I did on that one, and get that cleaned up real good, and then put everything back together. Also guys, I go ahead and just, if I don't tear the gasket or anything, I'll actually reuse the gasket. Just like on this gasket here, where your carburetor adapter goes on there, I'll just go ahead and use them, and I don't have any problem once I get one of these back together. That one there I got running real good guys, and basically the only money I got invested is that little bit of fuel line that I had to replace the fuel line on it. And I did the same thing with it, tore it all apart. The piston ring was frozen to the piston, just like it was on this one right here. And I was able to get that off, and I'll clean this up real good. And they're pretty simple to work on, guys. They just, they just basically fit on there like that. And this piece here is bolted on there like that. Just, take that off. And then I don't have to tear a whole lot apart here, guys. I don't pull the whole motor out. What I do, guys, the only issue that I really have on tearing one of these cylinders off is it's really tight with my my Allen wrench going down in here. So what I have to do is take it down until I get to that Allen, and then have to take a little screwdriver and kind of pry it in this cylinder head. Will be sitting on there like that, and I have to take my screwdriver and just kind of bend that, because it fits tight right here without taking this all apart. And I do use the longer one. You might be able to use a shorter one if you got a little shorter one that will fit down below that Allen wrench. I like to use the longer one because these bolts are really tight. What they do is they put red Loctite on them, so them bolts are really tight on there. And then once I get that on there, guys, I'll take my pliers and get on the top of this here Allen, and then I'll turn it, because I can't turn it. You won't be able to turn that by hand because they're really tight. You'll have to get you a pair of pliers and put on there and turn it to break them Allens loose, because like I said, they use red Loctite on them. And that's the biggest issue on getting one of those apart without tearing everything out of it. And I only got probably a half an hour on just tearing all this apart like I got it right now, even if I haven't half an hour in it. And I've taken the exhaust and everything off of it. And most of the time, guys, you'll find that these cylinders, you'll be able to reuse them. And right in here, guys, you'll get a lot of carbon built up in this exhaust area right here. And you want to get that cleaned up real good, because if you let that build up in there with carbon, a lot of times, sometimes the carbon will fall back down inside the cylinder. And then once it gets in there, guys, it'll start chewing up your cylinder wall with your piston. And then that's how you get, that's how these get all scratched up and stuff. It's because the carbon builds up here on the exhaust port, and then it can actually fall back down in there, and then you'll start scratching up. But about every one of these I've tore apart. I've never seen one that was scratched up bad enough where I couldn't reuse it. It's usually this, it's always been this piston ring here frozen to the piston itself. And like I said, once it does that, then you're going to lose compression, and the things are just not going to run right. They'll still run, but they won't run right. You'll have a lot of problems with them. Trying to keep them running, they won't want to run right. And that pretty much tells you your piston ring is getting frozen. You can also do put a compression tester on there, and that will give you a good idea too. Anything less than about, if you're less than 100, let's say 90, 95, 90, 80 PSI on your compression, then you know that your piston ring is probably frozen, and it's not, or either that or you got a really bad scratch cylinder, and you're not getting the compression that you need to suck the fuel inside your cylinder here to keep them running right. Because these two strokes are really finicky on how you got your carburetor set up and everything else. There's adjustment on these carburetors, and they take a special thing. Most of the time though, guys, I don't have to tear these carburetors. I'll just clean the outside of it up real good. Did the same thing on that one. It was just dirty on the outside. Didn't have to tear the carburetor apart. Sometimes you may have to tear the carburetor apart if that's the issue, to get it back up and running right. But about every one that I've tore apart, guys, it's always this piston ring with the it's got just one piston. Just got one ring on these here poulans, like your troybilts, your cheaper ones, your poulans, some of your Sears Craftsman, they only got a single piston ring. You get in some of your more expensive ones like the Echoes. I got an Echo over there. I think that's probably got the dual rings in it. And the steel, I'm guessing probably the steel, I never tore steel apart, never had to. But the steels, they probably have a double ring on the piston, and those are a little more expensive blowers when they got the double piston. But these cheaper ones, they'll just have one single one. And like I said, a lot of times people, what happens on these guys, they run their cheaper oil, and they may mix it a little bit heavier than the 40-to-1. If you're mixing it, heavier than 40-to-1, guys, all you're doing is producing a more oily film, which is going to cause this here to carbon up a lot quicker. So what I like to do on mine, guys, I run the AMS oil I run the full synthetic AMSOIL on my fuel and oil mixture, and I usually run about a 50-to-1, and then I also run a non-ethanol fuel on all my little two-stroke chainsaws, blowers, your weed eaters, stuff like that. It takes these little two-stroke motors. It's really a good idea to run the non-ethanol fuel, because a lot of times you'll have these sitting around. A lot of times these, I won't be using these until come fall time. So you're sitting there, several months with that fuel. And with the non-ethanol fuel, you can store that non-ethanol fuel. You can store it a lot longer than you can just your regular pump fuel anymore, because they use that ethanol in it, and that ethanol, it can break down that fuel after a while and cause you all kinds of headaches. I think there's a lot of other videos out there on explaining more about the ethanol and non-ethanol fuels and stuff like that on these smaller two-stroke motors. But anyways, guys, I wanted to throw that out there. These are fairly simple to work on. Not too difficult, and like I said, it won't take you long to do one. Once you do one or two of these, you'll really get used to doing them. And like I said, if you come across these at a garage sale, or somebody's wanting to sell real cheap, they can't get them started, they won't start for them. A lot of times, guys, it don't take a whole lot to get one of these back up and running. I find that it's either the fuel line and this here piston ring frozen to the piston. About every time I've had to tear one of these apart because somebody can't get one running or something, and you may even find somebody that's throwing these things away if you live in a big city or something, and maybe you see them sitting out by the trash bin or something like that. Hey guys, grab one of them, grab it, and do a little playing around with it. You may get that thing up and running for almost nothing. I mean, you may have to replace it. Seems like I've always got to replace the fuel line on them, because the fuel line gets real brittle and then it starts breaking. The fuel line starts breaking. And what I do, guys, I just buy it by the bulk. I buy this fuel line by the bulk. You can see I got different sizes here of the fuel line, and just buy a big roll of it, kind of a big roll, and that way you got it, and you can fix these chainsaws and the blowers and the gas weed eaters and stuff, and buy it by the bulk there, guys, and it's a lot cheaper than going into the store. Buy it off the internet, and then it's a whole lot cheaper than buying it your inside the store. A lot of times you can buy that fuel line, you can buy it at the store, like let's say Menards or Lowe's or something like that. I think they do sell that fuel line for these, but I just go ahead and buy it by the bulk on the internet, because I can get it a lot cheaper. And always kind of messing around with these little two-stroke. If I come across the deal like I did on these two right here, guys, $12 a piece on these. A little bit of work, cleaned that up real nicely. This is really dirty. That one was real dirty, like this one. You can see it's, a lot of dirt in there, and it's just not a very clean unit. A lot of people don't take care of them. They just, buy them to use them, and then once they quit running, they either throw them away or get rid of them or sell them in a garage sale or whatever. And a lot of times, guys, it don't take a whole lot to get one of these back up and running. So I thought I'd throw that quick video out there for you guys on these little two-stroke motors. Hey, if you can find one and you don't mind doing a little piddling around, guys, you can get one of these up and running fairly reasonable, as long as you don't break your piston ring. Of course, them piston rings, they don't cost very much. I bought a couple of them before, and they wasn't very much money at all. And your gasket set, you can get your gasket set for them if you tear a gasket or something, something like that. You can replace your gaskets too. I mean, if you got to, and you won't have a whole lot of money in it. Now, like on this one here, guys, the only thing I got invested in that is the fuel line, that little bit of fuel line right there, and everything else I was able to salvage. Got it put back together. Thing runs great. Have no issues with it at all. I've ran it several times now, and it runs really good now. Since I did, tore all this apart, cleaned the piston, took the ring out, cleaned that. So you can see there's some carbon. I don't know if that'll show up on the video or not, but you can see the carbon that's built up in between the piston here. And what I'll do is I'll go in there and scrape that out real good, clean that up real good, throw a little 2-stroke oil in there so this is moving around freely. And then also, guys, when you put these back together, there is a certain way that they go back together. Just kind of watch when you're tearing one apart. I don't know if that'll show up on the video or not, but there's kind of like a little groove, little grooves in that piston ring there. And them grooves, you want to put them on there like that, and then there's a little pin. That little pin, you want the opening area of your piston ring, or your piston ring. You want that opening in between that pin there, and then when you get ready to put your cylinder back on there, you'll have this. This will be back in here like that, and put a little oil. Take a little 2-stroke oil and oil all this up real good. And then when you're putting this back together, you'll kind of have to take your fingers and smash those, close that piston ring up on the piston, so you'll be able to get this to slide back down on your piston. Because otherwise it won't fit in there without you pressing this piston ring, closing that piston ring up, so your cylinder head will slide back down on your piston there, because you don't want to break that when you're trying to put that back together. Just be careful when you're doing that there, guys. When you're putting this cylinder head back down on your piston, make sure you got that closed up with your fingers. You kind of have to hold your fingers on it, and then hold your fingers down here like this, and then kind of take your other hand and slip your cylinder head down over top of that. And as long as you got that oiled up good, you shouldn't have any issues of sliding that down on there, and just basically putting everything back together, guys, and you should be good to go on getting her fired back up there. And like I said, almost every time I tear one of these apart, guys, I usually find that the cylinders are usually in pretty good shape on these. They usually don't have a lot of hours on them. Basically what freezes up on them is that doggone piston ring there to the piston. And then they start losing compression. And then they'll get to where they don't run very good. And then you'll have some people, they'll start adjusting on these carburetors thinking it's something wrong with the carburetor. And you may have to readjust your carburetor too once you get this back together, because if somebody thought maybe there was a carburetor issue and started messing with these jets right here, or these needles for your adjustment for your high and low on your carburetor here. And then once you get this back together, and if somebody's messed with those, and then it's not going to run quite right, so you may have to do some adjusting on that, because somebody may have thought that there was something wrong with the carburetor, and it's actually, most of the time, guys, it's going to be this here piston ring here on your piston. It's going to be carboned up, and it's going to be frozen, and it's not, you're not having enough compression in here to let that motor run like it's supposed to run. So anyways, guys, I hope I helped somebody out. Maybe you pick one of these up for free and just want to mess around with it or something. Give you a little idea on how to tear one of these apart and put her back together and get her up and running. You won't have almost nothing in one of these if you can find one for free or something sitting along the roadside somebody's throwing away. or do like I did. I found these at an auction, and I thought, you know, I've done it before. I bought these things before, and I pretty much know what's wrong with it. It's either the fuel line or the or this here piston ring is frozen to the piston. So so there you have it, guys. Maybe that'll help somebody out there. Maybe you have one of these sitting around your home there and you can't get it running and don't want to run right or something like that, guys. Just take your time tearing it apart, and if you can save your gaskets and stuff and tear it, you know, you can get your piston ring off there without breaking it. Just clean that up real good, guys. Throw it back together, and if your fuel line's okay, that may be all you'll have to do to get it back up and running. One of these here little gas blowers, or maybe your chainsaw or something like that, guys, because chainsaws do the same thing. They'll be the same way. They'll carbon up too. Now on the chainsaws, you may have a double ring on those, on some of your chainsaws. And like I said, some of the more expensive gas blowers, you'll have a double ring on them too. Usually the double rings, though, they don't seem to carbon up as much as these single. The ones with the single ring, like these here poulans and your troybilts, some of your off-brand gas blowers, some of the cheaper Sears Craftsman, they have the single piston ring, and that's usually where I always find the problem, is the carbon has frozen the piston ring to the piston. So there you have it, guys. Hope that helps somebody out there, and thanks for checking out the video, guys, and we will definitely catch you guys on the next video there, guys.